Hi, welcome back to Max Nave Horsemanship. And I'm going to show you the next step. Now, I showed you previously how you start putting the leg over and gradually a little lower each time. And then eventually you sit on the horse. Now, we have not done any more than what you just saw. The weather the last couple of weeks has been really bad. As you can see, it's winter out here. And around here, winter can get pretty nasty. And so we have actually not done anything outside. And the days being as short as they are, by the time I get home from work, it's black out here. And there, as you can see, there's no lights out here. So if it isn't daylight, we're kind of out of luck. But I thought I'd do a video here today, and I'll show you the next steps in getting your horse ready to be ridden. Now, and as I said previously, this one and that one, absolutely not ready to be ridden yet. In my opinion, they're way too young. Actually, most people would think they're too young. They won't even be 2 until spring. And even at that, I don't personally think that's old enough. Some people will start horses at that age. A lot of people still will, actually, but I don't agree. But we're still going to get ready. We're going to work on it because it might take a while, especially being that, winter months, it's quite often not very pleasant. So it might take a while to do this. So I'm going to show you the next steps. The first thing we're going to do is introduce her to the saddle pad, because that's your first layer that you're going to put on. So let me get one. Okay, so we got a saddle pad here. I actually have a few of these different sizes. This happens to be one of the thicker ones because it fits the saddle we're going to use, which actually we might even not use it under the saddle. We'll see what happens as we go along. But to start with, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce this to her. I'm just going to let her sniff at it a bit. I'm going to maybe, she doesn't seem too interested in it at all, so we're just going to rub it on her. And at this point, do both sides, remember. Everything with a horse, do both sides. And you don't want the horse to be terribly surprised by this. Now, I'm going pretty quick with this, actually, with this one, because she doesn't seem to really care that I'm doing this. So I'm going a little quicker than you should. Okay, so take your time, present it slowly, do it like everything, do it slowly. And I am going to be really paying attention to the horse today because I don't believe she's ready for this. I think we're getting a little ahead of things on this one. We should be lowering ourselves down on her and throwing a leg over a little bit more first, because that's kind of how we like to do things. But we're just going to continue to introduce it to her, let her sniff the thing. It smells like a horse because it's been on a few. You like that? Not so bad, eh? It doesn't hurt you a bit, does it? Nah. It's nice, in fact. It actually rubs you. Now, at this point, your horse might not care. The next step that we're going to go to, the horse might care, because especially in the case of these ones, we haven't been doing much with things going on their back. So when this goes on her back, she might have an issue with it. I don't know. Well, let's see what happens. I'm just going by the reaction I'm getting from her, which is next to nothing, that this is going well. And at this point, you might still be rubbing your horse with the saddle pad. Don't get in a hurry to get it on there, because they might not care that you rub it on them. But if all of a sudden there's something on their back, they might care, and there might be a reaction at that point. Now, at this point, she's backing up and turning around because I got treats in my pocket. She can smell them, and she's getting in position for them, which is standing back just a little bit with her nose facing me, waiting for something to go in her mouth. But that's not going to happen. And if that mouth gets too close to me, discipline, as usual. But just like I said before, and I couldn't emphasize enough, when you're putting a leg over, go slow, take your time, just a little bit at a time each day. And in the case of ones like this, they're young enough, we've got lots of time to be doing this stuff. So, and by the way, you're getting to see this for the first time. I've never done this before, and I'm actually a little hesitant to be doing this. I'm not sure she's ready for it, but we're going to do it anyhow. And I'm going to do it from the other side because I'm a weirdo. I do things from this side because in many ways I find it easier. So Saddle pad's over here. No big deal. She sees it. She knows it's here. It's coming. And I'm not going to just chuck it at her. I'm going to gently place it on her. And I'm just going to slowly rub her with it a bit. And there we go. We've gently placed it on her. And it's no big deal to her. But just in case she decides to move or it happens to be a windy day, you want to do something to keep it on there. And that's where you'll see I've got this other thing here. This is actually a set of clip-on reins that I have that I don't use anymore. But for this purpose, I think it's going to work really good. Because what I'm going to do, good girl, is now you'll notice I've also got a knot tied in it there. That's so once I wrap it around her, I can take the one end and just clip it on to the rein like that. Oops, get my glove out of there, getting stuck. There we go, just like that. Make a loop. And I'll show you why we're doing this. Now you can also do this with your lead rope if you got more than one. I just happened to spy these things sitting there and I thought, well, they'll do the trick. And then before I turned the camera on, I actually adjusted them to the length I wanted. And with the thickness of the pad on there, actually I might have to move this knot. Hope not, but we're going to just drop it down slowly. And so it's not going to surprise her any. Make sure this thing, oh, look at that, she's curious about it. There's, hey, what's that thing doing there? That's okay. Now, reach under, grab it, pull it up, and hopefully this is going to work. Well, she's a little concerned because I'm snugging it up a little bit. There we go. Now it's on there. Now this is accomplishing two things right now. If she moves, or it's a windy day, saddle pad's not going anywhere. I got something holding it on. And you can do the same thing with a set of clip-on reins, a lead rope, whatever's handy. This is something that's just convenient. And we're accomplishing two things. As I said, we're keeping the saddle pad from blowing away or falling off if she moves. And secondly, we're getting her used to the cinch or girth if you're English. They do the same, they accomplish the same thing. It's a string, a strap goes underneath, fairly wide one, holds the saddle on. Call it a cinch, call it a girth, doesn't really matter, does the same job. It's basically, that's what it is. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to move over a little bit here. And I'm just going to ask her to move around me a little bit because sometimes a horse is okay with things when they're standing still, but when they start moving, that's when the rodeo starts. So I'm going to make sure I've actually got a good hold of the lead here too. So just in case she does get a little goofy, I can control her. But as you can see, she's doing really good here. She does not care about this thing one little bit. This is beautiful. I'm very happy with this. So she's accepted the saddle pad without a problem at all. So I think I'm going to take it off now and we'll move on to the next step. And the next step is the saddle itself. Now for this part, and since we're not actually going to ride her anyhow, I don't think we need the saddle pad. And it's actually a lot easier putting a saddle on for the first time without a saddle pad. It's just one more thing to worry about, get in your way, stuff like that. What a good girl. And take that off. Now, we're going to be nice how we take it off. We're going to be polite again, as usual. Everything we do, we be polite. We're going to pull it off nice and slow and gentle. There we go. Well, that part went extremely well, far better than I expected. And this is what you're going to have to do, but much slower. I would encourage you to do much, much slower. And you might have to do it several times before they get good at it. And like I say, if you come up with a rope or something that you can wrap around to hold the saddle pad on, it accomplishes two things: keeps the saddle pad from flying away and gets the horse used to having something wrapped around underneath it that eventually it's going to need, because that saddle's going to have something holding it on. So just give me a second. I'm going to put this back and I'm going to grab a saddle. And we're going to see what we can do with that. And I don't think we're going to use this. I think we're just going to use just the saddle. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute too. Okay, so now we got a saddle. Now this particular saddle, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, is this is not one of my better ones. This is actually my cheap one. I happened to buy it used. Not a high quality saddle to begin with. Plus I got it used, so it didn't really cost me. I only got a few $100s into it. And in the early stages, at some point, you may end up dropping it in the dirt, or it may end up falling in the dirt, or, well, things happen. And, well, if it's a cheap saddle, you don't care. It's not a big deal. And so that's why I'm using this particular one. It's still functional though, like it fits the horse, it fits me. I have used this for riding a few times. It's not horrible. It does the job. And you'll notice I even got some new stirrups on there. I needed bigger ones for my feet, so I actually had to spend a little extra money on them. But other than that, it is what it is. I picked it up used, didn't cost a whole lot. It's not a high-end saddle. It's a company that doesn't even exist anymore. I don't know how long it's been since it did, but oh well. Now, I'm just, she's checking it out. She's sniffing at it and looking at it and everything. So I'm figuring, you know what? I'm actually doing something here while I'm talking to you. I'm going to do that. She's checking it out and getting comfortable, deciding what it is and whether or not she needs to worry about it. So the whole time I'm standing here talking to you, we're actually accomplishing something. Now she's stopped looking at it. She's looking at something else. I don't know what, because there's nothing out there again. I don't know why these guys always look over that direction. There's something over there. I don't know what. There's something. But anyhow, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to throw it on from the other side eventually. But I'm going to start off with over here, and because, well, it's not even pointing the right direction for this side. So, but I'm going to touch her with it, rub her with it a little bit, and she doesn't seem to mind. Not one little bit. She's not even looking at it. Nothing. Okay. Well, let's turn her around here. Yeah, the other way. And then this way. There we go. And there we go. Whoa, easy there. Good girl. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, and you almost need two people, because it'd be nice to hang on to the lead so that just in case the horse does actually get a little out of hand, you still got some control over it. I'm hoping she's not going to, but just in case she does, I'd like to have a lead in my hand so we can, stop her from getting too crazy. I didn't say go anywhere. Where do you think you're going? No. Well, that's not what I wanted. That's where you were before. I'm going to just drop this thing in the snow while I straighten out the horse where I want her. And that is why I like a cheap saddle, because I wouldn't want my good saddles in the snow. That would be not good for them. Snow, dirt, whatever, not good for your saddles. But this one, I'm not too concerned. But I want her to face the other direction because, like I said, I'm a little weird. I like throwing my saddle on from the other side. So that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to put the saddle on from that side. Oh, right there. No. That was not what I wanted, dear. You're not listening. There, that's a good girl. That's where we want you. Right there. Well, hopefully now I can actually turn around and pick up the saddle without her moving, but I've got a funny feeling that when I turn around, she seems to take that as a cue to move for some reason, because she's not used to me having my back to her. I'm usually looking at her, keeping an eye on her. But, well, that's not the case today. We're not doing it that way. What do you want? Why are you kicking it there, Ray? No, don't do that. Oh, you're digging through the snow, looking for some grass to eat. There's a whole pile of hay just over here, about 50 feet away, and they're digging through the snow and eating the grass. I think people worry too much about what horses do or don't like, what they're capable of doing. Their instincts allow them to forage just fine. But anyhow, back to what we're doing, putting the saddle on. I say, this is the first. This horse has never ever had a saddle on her. And so this is a little dicey, and I'm doing things, well, it's not quite ideal. I'd actually prefer not to even have stirrups on here right now, but they're there, and I don't feel like taking them off. That'd be way too much work. So they're staying on, but the cinch is on this side and it's hanging up, so it's going to be out of the way. But I'm not putting the stirrups up. And I explained once before why I don't do that. Because when you put the saddle on, if the stirrup happens to fall down and whack the horse in the side, especially at this stage when it's not used to that kind of stuff, there's a good chance it's going to jump sideways and you're going to get hurt. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our now snowy saddle, pick it up, shake some of the snow off, and turn around, try and still hang on to one end of the lead, and touch her with it, rub her with it. Now I've talked before about putting the saddle on politely. How you got to do that. No dear, I don't want you like that. That's not the right position. No, you stay right there, don't move. And you got to be polite, very polite. It's very important. Now she's moving again. Will you please stop moving? Oh, now you're going to stop when you're on the wrong way. No, that's not right. Put the saddle down again in the snow. See, this is why you don't have a good saddle for this. Okay. Now she'll just stay here. And you might have a problem with this. You too. Because she's not used to this kind of thing where I'm going to be standing with my back to her to begin with. And I'm going to explain why. I did a video on that a while ago where I talked about the easy way of saddling is actually starting off with your back to the horse and then throwing it on from the right-hand side of the horse. It's much easier, actually. And it requires a little technique, requires a bit of method. You got to practice. It's not something you're going to get real good at overnight, and it's best not to practice on a horse. Find something, whether it's a fence or a whatever, that you can whip it up onto, and it's going to make your life a little easier. So back to what we're doing here, if she'll stay. Sure hope she does. I'm kind of getting tired of this round in circles here thing. But this is the real world. This is stuff you're going to have to do. Because we're trying not to get in a big hurry about this. Here. Because we're not going to ride her, so no saddle pad. In fact, I'm probably not, at this point, considering this is the very first time I'm putting it on, probably, hey, leave my camera alone, jerk. Sorry if you noticed it jumping a little bit there. It's because some big dummy was nibbling on my bag. Dummy. Oh, anyhow. So she seems to be fairly cool with this. Now, I haven't figured out a really good way of doing this, but I do have the lead kind of a little bit tangled there. There we go. Up over the top of the saddle, so I'll still have access to it. Now, this is something you're going to want to do as slow as possible. If you've got an English saddle, this is going to be much easier, actually, because they're lighter, and the stirrups move up. You can actually pull the stirrups up on the leathers. I can't do that, but we'll talk about that another time. English saddles and Western saddles, they're both good. Don't get me wrong. My preference is a Western saddle, but I have nothing against the English saddle. For certain things, they are far better. But for what I do, a Western saddle is better. That's my choice. Okay, now if you'll excuse me, dear, I'm going to set this thing. Now she's small enough I can actually lift this up and set it down on her back. Yeah, there. I'm still hanging on to the lead here, just in case she gets silly, because some horses, when that thing hits their back, they're going to get a little upset about it. And I'm just going to come around the other side here, make sure that everything's out from underneath. It's sitting straight. Oh, that stirrups up, crooked. There we go. Hey, it's actually sitting pretty good, and she doesn't seem to care. This is really good. This is working out good. Now, next time I put it on, I might actually drop the cinch down and do it up, just so she gets the sensation of something squeezing up on her from underneath. Hey! Okay, I was left in a rather not good spot. One of the horses would not leave my camera alone. Threw snowballs at it, ended up hitting my camera instead, which I couldn't have done if I tried. And I wanted to go over there and make sure it was pointing the right direction and everything. I hadn't messed stuff up, because actually looking at it, I think it has turned a bit. But I wanted to get it all sorted out, and well, I just put the saddle on this one, and I didn't want her walking around with a saddle on that wasn't done up, because it would probably fall off. That might freak her out. So I had to take the saddle off, and there it is again, laying in the snow. So this is why you don't have a good saddle for this. But all in all, that went very well. Next time, I'm probably going to maybe do up the cinch, and just loosely. And each time I do it, I might add a little bit more to it, do it up a little tighter, use the saddle pad, so on, until she gets used to the entire routine of somebody showing up and chucking a saddle pad and saddle on her, and it's going to be no big deal for her. Actually, even as it is, it doesn't seem to be a big deal. I'm actually impressed with how well she's doing with this. Hey, sweetie? You're a good girl, aren't you? Hey? Yes, you're a good girl. So there you go. Next step in getting your horse ready to ride. Hope it helps you out. I hope I'm not too far off camera. I can't really see that good because the monitor's, it's a long ways away over there. And I can't really tell what's going on and what you can see. So I hope this is working out for you and that you got to see what I was showing you. And just, it's like everything, take your time, go slow, do it in steps, don't do everything all at once. You know, start off with just a saddle pad, introduce it to her, let her sniff it, him, her, doesn't matter, rub them with it. Then slowly slip it on, take it off. You can do that a few times if you want. And then you can escalate to what I did, where I actually tied it onto the horse so she could move around with it on. Because sometimes when they're standing still, they're okay with things, but as soon as they're moving, all of a sudden they're not okay with things. And I've seen that a number of times. And that's where there's something called desensitizing while moving. And it can make a big difference, especially something like the saddle. Once we get it strapped on and cinched down, we're going to have her walk around with that on, because sometimes, and actually quite frequently, you'll put a saddle on a horse and you'll think, hey, the horse is great with the saddle, not a problem, didn't move a muscle, but you haven't tried making it move yet. And as soon as you ask her to move, all of a sudden it explodes and it starts bucking and all kinds of things. And even a good horse can do that. You know, this is not, it's not a statement of your training methods or the horse, okay? It's just something that can happen. Because when they're just standing still, they're in a state of frozen, because you always hear about fight or flight. Well, there's a third one, frozen. That's where they don't move at all. If they don't move, it doesn't exist. It goes away eventually. And that's kind of what they're thinking, you know? So sometimes the horse will just stand there absolutely motionless while you're doing stuff. But when you ask it to move, all of a sudden it flips out. And so you got to be careful. Don't assume because you put it on and the horse didn't flinch that it doesn't have a problem with it. It might. You got to ask it to move. And that is something we will be doing in the future. Actually, even while I had this one on, just sitting on her, I had her take a few steps. And she didn't seem to care one little bit. I just didn't bother going all the way over to the camera like that, because I figured by the time we got there, it would fall off. And I wasn't sure how she was going to react with that thing sliding off and hitting the ground. That might upset her. I don't know. Some horses don't care. Some bothered by it. So we weren't going to do it. But we will continue doing this stuff over and over, like everything. And, you know, we're going to be lowering ourselves down on, rubbing her on her with the leg, eventually putting weight on her. And same thing with the other one, because we're doing all the exact same stuff with both horses. At this point, they're kind of pretty even, caught up. And so we're doing exactly the same stuff with both of them. So the other one, I'm going to be putting the saddle pad and saddle on her today too. And I'm pretty sure that's not going to be a problem because I know for a fact she has had a saddle on her. She's never been ridden, but the owner actually, shortly after getting her, threw a saddle on her back just to see how she'd react. And well, I thought that was incredibly premature for something like that. She didn't react at all to it, didn't care. I think they even did up the cinch on it and left it on her for a while. So I don't expect that she's going to be a problem at all for this one. This horse here, though, has never ever had a saddle on. Never had a saddle pad, a saddle, or nothing. So this is how good they can be. But don't expect them all to be this good. I have seen some that were quite reactive, and it took a little bit. The saddle itself being a big dead animal, because that's basically what it is. It's leather. It's a dead animal. And a big dead animal getting chucked at a horse sometimes freaks them out a bit, so you got to be careful, and you almost expect to see some kind of a reaction. It can happen, guaranteed. So take your time, go slow, and hopefully you can mitigate most of those reactions. You know, there's no guarantee that you're never going to get one. You know, that's one of the things about working with horses is there's a lot of variance, and you know, some don't give a crap about nothing, and others go ballistic over every little thing. So you're going to have to expect either one, and well, that's what you're probably going to get is either one extreme or the other, or somewhere in between. Who knows? You know, I'm just showing you the basic process. Don't expect your horse to be like this, but hopefully your horse will be pretty close to this, because if you go slow enough with everything else you do and take your time and tell her what a good girl she is, all that stuff, the horse gets so comfortable around you that it doesn't matter what you do, it's okay with it. And that's kind of one of your goals when you're doing this type of training, is you're just working the horse up to things so that eventually the horse gets to the point where nothing is an issue. You know, it's just one more thing that, you know, on the rare occasion, you know, it might not understand something. It's like, oh, that's new. Okay, I'll figure it out. Because you've done so many other things with it previously that it's had to figure out that, well, it's going to. And instead of just reacting and, what are you pawing at? That's an interesting thing. There's a lot of theories as to why horses paw. Some say it's a indication of they're impatient. They want to do something. Sometimes they will also dig through the snow to find the grass underneath because they happen to like that particular patch. Maybe that's what she's doing. I don't know. Anyhow, I hope all this is useful to you, and you can see exactly what happens if you take your time and just go slow. It's not a big deal. You know, you aren't going to end up with a rodeo on your hands. Nothing bad's going to happen, and the horse isn't going to have a meltdown, and you're not going to get hurt. And that's probably one of the most important ones, is we don't want you getting hurt, okay? So put this knowledge to use, and I'll bring you back, I don't know. I'm sure we can show you something yet. We aren't quite there. But we do have a few more little things to go. Not a whole lot, though, because one of the things, I do things just a tiny bit different. I take groundwork just a little bit further than a lot of people do, in the fact that by the time I ride a horse for the first time, it already knows how to be ridden. It just hasn't been ridden yet. And that's kind of what we like to accomplish, is that, and by asking the horse to move around, siding up to the mounting block, things like that, it's getting used to you being in an elevated position. Same with hanging off the fence while you're putting your leg over, things like that. The horse is learning that you can cue it from a different place, because once you're on the horse's back, you're in a different place and you're higher. And if you can cue the horse from a similar height, then it gets used to that kind of stuff. And what we're going to be doing is, you know, the leg, the weight, the saddle, all this stuff, a little at a time. So by the time we actually do get on the horse and throw a leg over, it's all been done. There's basically nothing left to do except ride the horse. It's really that easy. There's very, very little at all that needs to be done from the saddle. Pretty much everything can be done from the ground. It's much easier and much safer. to do it on the ground instead of on their back. And it's much less stressful for the horse too, because when you get on its back, it's not getting freaked out by this new experience, because nothing new is happening that it hasn't already experienced. It's had a saddle on, it's had weight on its back, it's basically had you on its back, and you just didn't let go of the fence. I sure hope you don't, because if the horse ever does get a little concerned and take off out from under you, I don't want you ending up on the ground, okay? Because even from a low distance, you can get hurt. Okay, so you don't want to be falling off the horse. So you're going to want to, hey, don't do that. I'm not your scratching post. Thank you. So, even when you're doing stuff like throwing a leg over and gradually putting weight on, never ever let go of whatever you're hanging on to, just in case you happen to cross the line and the horse freaks out. Okay, it's a pretty simple thing. Just protect yourself. I don't want you falling on the ground and getting hurt. And from that distance, if you happen to be pretty young, it probably won't matter. You'll bounce okay, but there's also a chance. I knew a guy jumped off of a trampoline, which was only about 3 feet off the ground. And when he hit the ground, he landed wrong and broke his leg. Young guy, wasn't even 20 years old. At that age, he should have been pretty resilient. And but no, he got hurt. He broke a leg just from that distance. So considering how far it is coming off a horse, if you hit the ground, especially if there happens to be hard objects, rocks, whatever laying around, and you're banging your head on one of those, that's going to hurt. So we don't want that stuff. So all this stuff is all leading up to safety, so that when you do eventually get on the horse, throw a leg over, all of that stuff's already happened. It's already been cued from a higher place. It's already been taught to stop, go, turn, everything. And the last horse that I trained from scratch, one of my own, when I first started riding him, I had to remind myself I was on a green horse. He was that good. Partly personality, too. He's a real nice guy. But partly the fact that we had gone slow enough with him that when we finally did get on and ride him, it was like riding an old been there, done it horse. He just knew exactly what I wanted and didn't mind one little bit. And like I said, I had to remind myself I was on a green horse. He was great. And kind of wish I still had that one. Anyhow, but that is what you can get. It's not always going to be perfect like that. There's never a guarantee with some horses. And I was watching a video years back, a really good horseman does things much the same as I do. And he says, it's not a guarantee. Taking your time, going slow, and being thorough is not a guarantee, ever. You may throw a leg over and that horse might freak out and it might start bucking and you may end up on the ground. It can happen. It can. Stack the odds in your favor, far less likely to happen if you take your time and go slow and be thorough with everything you do before you get on, but it can still happen. So be prepared, be careful. Don't assume anything's going to be okay, all right? In the meantime, have some fun and go play with your horses, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.